Progress. Recording in progress.
This video is all hard.
Yeah. Okay, can you all hear me? Hello?
Hello? I hear you well.
You said not.
You said not well. I hear you. You are clear.
Okay.
Okay.
But why is it feeding back? It's not done that the whole time. Okay. All right, we're gonna, if y'all can hear me, then we're gonna move on. All right. Let's start with, okay, Vanessa's coming. We're gonna start with prayer because we need it. I need it.
Amen. I started to say that when I saw you were having problems. Maybe we need to pray because, you know, I'm a firm believer that adversary, people always say technology, and I get that. But when you're doing things like this, the adversary really likes to interfere because he doesn't want it to happen. He don't want us to get delivered. So he'll do whatever he can to disturb.
Agreed. So yeah, we are definitely gonna pray. Hey, Vanessa. All right, let's pray. Our Father and our God, we're just thankful for this another day and evening that we can get together. We thank you for all of your many blessings. We thank you even for the challenges because it teaches us how to figure things out and to manage our emotions in difficult times and challenges. And so we ask, Lord, now that as we move forward on this last night, that you would provide clarity and insight, and that we will be encouraged and motivated to take action in the areas of our life that we need to. We know that you have a plan for us and we want to live by it. But in your name, I do pray. Amen.
Amen.
How's everybody today? Tonight?
Very good.
Good.
Same.
So the first challenge that happened is that my slides aren't working. Thankfully, I don't have a lot of them tonight at all, so that's a good thing. But tonight we're gonna talk about friendship, and we're gonna reignite passion for singles. We talked, the last two nights we discussed reimagining love, and now we're gonna talk about reigniting passion. And often when we think about that, if you say passion, you know, we immediately jump to sexuality and that kind of physical passion. But I believe that passion is just about excitement. It's about that too, but it's about excitement and joy and fulfillment. And single ladies, we can have that as well. And so the first thing we're going to talk about is the happy hormones. I'm going to try to play something for you, and I hope that you can hear it without any issues. Can you all hear me? All right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you hear that?
I just heard you ask the question, did we hear that? So if you were playing something, I didn't hear it. I'm trying to multitask in here.
Okay. All right, let's pray again. Dear Lord, this is from you or us. So I ask that you would rebuke all of the demons that are trying to distort and rattle me and to make us not hear what you have to say. Thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. So I was playing the theme from the Golden Girls. Who remembers that show? Thank you for being a friend. Can you hear me?
Me, I used to love to watch that show.
Yes, me too. Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road and back again. Your heart is true. You're a pal and a confidant. And if you threw a party, invited everyone you knew, you would see the biggest gift would be from me. And the card attached would say, thank you for being
a friend.
And first of all, it's probably, one of the top 5 most famous theme songs from a show, but also it was a very popular show, even among people that were not women, were not senior citizens, who were not even white. But it really was iconic in its time. And even now, you can, at any given day, you can find an episode of the Golden Girls playing. Why do you think that is? Why was it, besides the fact that it was funny, why do you think that show was so popular? You can talk back to me.
One of the things, the women, to see 4 women live in the same house together and have this really beautiful relationship, and were able to be themselves. And unfortunately, today's time, 4 women in 4 women in the same house, sadly, would be almost impossible today. Even unfortunately amongst the body of Christ. But yeah, that's what I loved about it. 4 women, they lived in the house and they got along. Even when they had their disagreements, they came back and made up and moved forward,
Yeah, of course. I think that, I will disagree that I think that 4 women today still could do that. But we have to be wise in the relationships that we enter into, friendships as well as other types. So I think that I think what Roberta said was correct. One of the main reasons, besides it was funny, it addressed controversial issues, certainly for that time, in a way that made you listen and that people were able to, receive it better because it was kind of a comedy. And the fact that they were 4 unmarried women, some, widows, some divorced, that lived together, and their relationship with one another was really central to the show. It was the point of the show. And what it demonstrated, of course, it's a program, it's written, but I believe it's still true that happiness, fun, and a full life can be enjoyed by those who are single. We understand that in the show, we have moral boundaries that they did not necessarily have or ascribe to. So yes, they were having sex outside of marriage. We don't believe as Christians that is what we should be doing, but that wasn't the essence of the show. Their relationship together, sitting around that table, eating cheesecake, telling stories, sharing challenges, and even having conflicts with one another, and then resolving that because of the nature of the relationship. And all indications that we have in that show is that they love their life. Friendship, real, true friendship, can consistently activate the happy hormones as well as what we assume has to be romantic relationships. Hormones, I'm going to read this. Hormones are chemicals produced by different glands across your body. They travel through the bloodstream, acting as messengers and playing a part in many bodily processes. One of the important functions of hormones is to regulate our mood. And there are certain hormones that have been dubbed the happy hormones. That is dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins. I want to read this. This is a little bit of a lengthy section from an article, but I really want you to read this because as we talk about reigniting passion for singles, I want us to really grab hold of the fact that God created us with these hormones that regulate our mood and create happiness and excitement and bonding. This isn't accidental or incidental. He created us for that. He created us with that, and they are stimulated by many things other than just romantic relationships or sex or even having a baby, because a lot of people think, oh, well, you get this when you bond with your baby, but these hormones are activated by relationships. And so we can have that happy, joyful, passionate life full of vibrant relationships that are outside of just marriage. So I'm going to read this. It's from bumble.com. Having a supportive social network, i.e. a lot of friends, can help you live longer with less anxiety and fewer health problems. And I'm just going to probably stop periodically and just comment on some of the thoughts here. But I want you to think about that. When we are living small or we are dwelling on what we don't have, we talked yesterday about gratitude. When we're constantly marinating on the fact that we don't have a husband, we don't have that relationship, or if you don't have a child, you don't have, when we are constantly in that, we actually do physical damage to our body. The stress weakens our immune system. We make ourselves sick, literally, by the way that we think. Our thoughts are powerful. We talked about that yesterday. How our thoughts about ourselves can generate negativity and sadness, or positivity and joy and love for ourselves. But this is saying when you have a supportive network, you live longer with less anxiety and fewer health problems. That's amazing, because the Bible says a merry heart doeth good like a medicine. So a lot of times, and even I heard a statistic one time that said that, and it may have been in the writings of it's Ministry of Healing, but I think there's a scientific study also that reports that most mental illness is really about guilt and shame and our thoughts about ourselves or the wrongs that we have done. And so when you think about the power of our thoughts, when we direct it toward living a life that we love, that's full of joy and relationships and happiness and purpose, and of course, our relationship with God and our love for self, we can seriously turn the corner from where we may have been just kind of miserable. And there are people, I don't know who, everyone's situation on the call as far as this concerned, but there are people who actually live in misery because they are not married and they neglect all of the other opportunities for life and passion and joy that God has provided. When humans get lonely, a genetic cascade of changes happen in your body. Loneliness increases inflammation and turbocharges your fight or flight stress response, which stresses you out and your immune system starts to get weaker. And then that becomes a biological feedback loop. Because you have these chemical changes, you isolate yourself, which then leads to depression, which can mean you get stuck. The more sad you are, the more isolated you become. The more sad you are, the more isolated you become, the weaker your immune system, and then it's just a cycle. The opposite of loneliness, which is connection, the opposite of loneliness is connection. It's not marriage. Because how many people know that there are people who are married and lonely? There are people that are married and lonely. So the opposite of loneliness is connection. It involves emotion, thought, empathy, intuition, our senses, and reason. When you really connect with someone, either romantically or platonically, you develop healthy brain cells and strengthen your positive neural pathways in your brain. Even science is telling us, even that platonic relationships create the same benefits as romantic relationships. Healthy friendships improve your emotional intelligence. A powerful cocktail of oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin, all feel-good hormones, elevate your mood and optimize your hormonal response to stress. Certain people in your social circles get you. You share an understanding of life and one another. How many people have friends that it's really like an ongoing conversation? You don't say hello every time you talk or you text. You just start talking. And you can make references that they understand. And if someone else, I always tell my friends, if someone read our text messages, they would think we were insane. But when we put it in there, all of us know what we're talking about and we're cracking up or we're responding or whatever. When you create that, you have those bonds that elevate your mood and give you that shot of oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin and bond you. When you experience this emotional connection, Oxytocin, the trust and love hormone, and love is what we've been spending a lot of time talking about this week, is released into your bloodstream. Oxytocin triggers a fountain of serotonin and dopamine. You feel more generous and cooperative as your brain's reward circuitry reinforces the awesomeness of this friendship. Just thinking of this friend will be chemical magic. One good friend can transform your attitudes, beliefs, and behavior throughout all parts of your life. A good friend can give us insight to ourselves, to the world, to our purpose, to our gifts, to our weaknesses. A really good friend can impact and does impact, as we allow it, all parts of our life, because we built trust and love with them. And so when they give us counsel or advice, or we laugh with them or share with them, that impacts us profoundly. When you laugh with someone, neurochemicals called endorphins are released. These chemicals clear your cell memory and open a natural flow of information chemicals. Suddenly you feel happy. You have more bandwidth to learn, grow, and face reality when you get regular hits of these neurochemicals. And I'm going to jump a little bit because I want to touch on the regular hits. Part of our problem, just I think particularly in the United States, I don't know that, I haven't lived a lot of places and not familiar with other countries, but I am familiar with some. And part of our issues often is, as single people, is that because we don't value platonic relationships as much as romantic relationships, we don't make time for those platonic relationships as much as we do romantic relationships. When we're dating someone, we find all the time in the world to spend with them, to be on the phone with them, to text them, to communicate, whatever. But it's often to the detriment of our friend relationships, because I think in the back of our mind, we know that those people will be there if we have good friends. But two, it's because we value them less. And the reality is the world has created an atmosphere, and the church even more has created an environment and atmosphere and culture that tells us that male-female relationships far outweigh the value of female-female or male of friendships.
Repeat that again.
How many people know that's true?
Can you repeat that?
Yes, the world and the church have taught us incorrectly that romantic relationships are more valuable than platonic relationships. Having a spouse is more important than having a friend, point blank. That's the simple way if you want to say it like that. And we have adopted that mindset so that it's easy to kick our friends to the curb when a man comes along, because that is more valuable in the sight of the world and the church. And I'm gonna maybe harp on the church a little bit more, because that's where we reside. We get our values and we understand values from our belief system. And for those on this call, that belief system is Christianity. And Christianity exalts marriage and it diminishes singleness. Christianity makes you feel that singleness is wrong and is your fault, is my fault. And so when we are, even though we don't always consciously know this, when we have that mindset, we diminish. Friendship is just something that is important while we're single. How many people have known someone who's gotten married and then you can't be friends with them no more?
Yes.
They don't got time for you no more. And what I'm not saying is, of course, when you get married, you have different responsibilities and all of that. But the reality is, as we're going through this process, creating a holistic life, we understand, and if we don't, I hope we will by the end of tonight, understand that our friendships are godly friendships with other women, particularly. Not that you can't be friends with a guy, but you know, that's kind of always fraught with some challenges, you know, at times too. But that those relationships have sustained us and that they are valuable and need to be carried over into our marriage. Granted, you may not be able to spend as much time with your friends. You shouldn't, because you do have other responsibilities. You have a responsibility to your husband, or if you're a man, you have a responsibility to your wife. But many people don't block out any time for those friendships, and it's just kind of like they fade away, or they by happenstance, or maybe we run into each other. And no, these friendships are part of the joy of life that God has gifted us the opportunity to have. And so we need to be getting regular hits of that. Even if you say, hey, I can't meet every week, but once a month, we're going to spend some time together, and you put that on your calendar, and that's a done deal. It's written in pen. Loneliness has been shown to be more detrimental to our health than smoking 15 cigarettes a day. But here's an interesting thing. Since 1985, the number of Americans who report not having a close friend has tripled. And Facebook was not in 1985. It didn't come till later. Not that long later, but later. I don't think it came in 85. But we know that many people have lots of social media friends, but no actual friends. Right. And so people are reporting being more lonely now than ever before. Even with Zoom and all the technology. My friends and I are in we have a Bible study that we do on Saturday afternoon. And often after the Bible study, we will stay on and just talk, because we can see each other, we can laugh. You know, we text each other regularly, but it's cool to be able to see each other and talk to each other and share. And it's almost like we're not, you know, I live in Florida now, they're in Richmond. It feels like we're not as far away as we are in actual space. But so many people just have numbers in their friend list, but not actual real relationships. Neil Nedley is a doctor at Weimar College and the director of Weimar. It's a clinic that helps people with mental health and physical health. And they have like a wellness program where they use biblical principles and naturopathic medicine to help people heal from different diseases and other things. And he came and spoke at a college in Virginia a few months ago. Now, his topic was on sex and mental health, and he was mostly talking to married people, but he talked about single people for a little bit, and he was saying that single people, that when single people have good friendships, they actually can maintain a more consistent level of euphoria So he was showing it on a graph. It was going, you know, when you're married often, and he was just kind of talking about how often you should be intimate and that type of things. And, but if you're too much, then it can cause some challenges over time. But single people, their level of euphoria is consistent, it lasts longer, and it doesn't drop below baseline and then have to come back up when often married people do, because they haven't maybe have the other parts of their relationship are not in order. But you can maintain a healthy, relaxed, happy state with good friendships. According to him, to have a psychological good life, dopamine stays up longer, returns to above neutral, and then goes back up again. And so let's say I go and visit my friends and I get this good shot and I'm there for a few days and I'm happy, and then it actually lasts beyond the time that I'm physically with them. I come home and that high lasts for longer. And then when it drops, it doesn't drop like I'm just like now lonely again. A residual effect of that interaction lasts. And then I talk to them again, or I text them again, or whatever. And those things are maintained. So it's more natural. Friendships are not just fun or a way to pass the time until you find a husband. Friendships can eliminate persistent loneliness, increase happiness, and improve health. Does that mean, this says eliminate persistent loneliness. Does that mean you will never feel moments of loneliness? And of course it doesn't mean that. But persistent where you're wallowing, where you can't do anything, where you're ineffective, all you do is stay home and bemoan the fact that you're single, or you know, whatever, and every time everything you do is about trying to find someone, that is not a joyful life. But good friendships can help you to maintain that, and then still, of course, desire to be married and, you know, maybe and meet someone. I pray for you all, if that is God's will. I pray that it not happen if it is not his will. And I certainly pray it doesn't happen with someone who is not in full relationship with him. But I want to talk about now specifically the 3 kinds of friendships that can maximize the benefit of the friendship relationship. The first one is a mentor. Now, a lot of times we think mentor, we think about little kids like big brothers, big sisters, that type of thing. And of course that's important, but we're all grown-ups. We're all good and grown here. But the reality is there's someone who's a couple of steps ahead of us. They don't even have to be like years older than us. And sometimes they may not even be older than us. They just might be more experienced than us in certain areas. But to have a mentor, it promotes different hormones. All of these different things promote different hormones of those happy hormones. When we learn new things, dopamine is released that gives us a sense of euphoria and happiness. When we are intentional about having a mentor, particularly a spiritual mentor, but it can be a business mentor. It could just be just a life mentor, someone who has had experiences and that can pour into you, share with you, teach you, advise you, counsel you, hold you accountable in certain areas that you may be struggling. You're just like, I need someone who maybe has overcome this to help me be accountable to this thing. And, you know, we talked about some of those things that we want to work on within ourselves yesterday. And you can have a plan to say, I want to, in fact, I did this a few months ago. The first time I did it, I had someone who wanted to spend more time with God. They were very busy, very active in the church and all this. And but she was just like, she felt like she was, you know, robbing God of his time. I mean, we talked about time the first day. And so she got an accountability partner within the group and said, I'm going to, you know, read my Bible and pray and spend time with God from this time to this time. I'm going to turn off my phone, all of the whole thing. And then we actually, at that time, we had follow-up meetings for 90 days. So every 30 days, we would all meet, whoever wanted to, and talk about their progress. And she was like, I'm doing it, you know, I'm doing it. I'm so happy. And I just feel so much closer to God. So we're talking about practical things here. There's certainly a larger context and all of that, but having a relationship with God, loving yourself, developing friendships and having mentors, there are practical things that you need to do and that you can do to do that. It's not just this esoteric, well, God loves me and I love him. And it's no, just like any other relationship we have to develop that and get to know each other. Then the same is true of this. So we're talking about mentors. If you don't have one, think about somebody in your community or your church, maybe someone at your job that you admire, something about them, maybe their business acumen or how they are a leader. Maybe they are, you know, they have a strong faith and that you can connect with, that can help you and pour into you so that you can grow and learn. And when we learn new things and grow, that builds happiness and joy, and we start loving our life even more. I want to talk about an example in the Bible of this, and that is Timothy. Timothy was basically like a son to Paul. Paul and Silas, really, but we hear more about Paul just because we hear more about Paul. Timothy had seen Paul suffering in Lystra and how he had gotten up and with praise and thanksgiving, and he was impressed with that idea of giving himself fully in ministry to God. And his encounter with Paul led him to be persuaded, and he became a companion of Paul in labor. And Paul advised him to work faithfully with meekness and how he should pastor. These are all things, but it seems as if Timothy, we don't hear about his father. We know his father was not a Jew, he was a Greek, but we don't hear about his father being present. So it sounds like even maybe his father may not have been alive at the time. We hear about him being raised by his mother and grandmother and how they poured into him, and that's important. But he had an older man who was in the ministry to help him and guide him and teach him and tell him what to look out for and tell him how to stand up for himself, even when he was young as a pastor. When I was living in Richmond, I had two women who were mentors to me. Well, actually three. And unfortunately, they have all passed away in the last couple of years. But Sister Webb, I used to go to her, she was the secretary at the church, and she was not that much older than me, but she was married and she had, you know, grown children. And so her experiences of life were different than mine. And her relationship with God, it was just so beautiful. And so I would just go and hang out in her office and just talk to her and listen to her. And she would share. And I was going through a difficult time at one point. And one night, she's like, come to the office after you get off work. and I'm going to take you somewhere. So I went there, and we got in the car, and we just drove and drove and drove and drove and drove. I was not familiar with Virginia. I had no idea where we were going, but it was like off in the country, trees and dark and stuff. So I was like, okay. Well, we ended up at Mrs. Olympia's house, and Miss Olympia had been, well, really was still Sister Webb's mentor. They had met in New York. She was an older woman, and she, at that time, like in that first conversation, she got me to admit that I felt like a loser. Whatever was happening in my life at the time, I don't remember that. And I was like, I feel like a loser. And I had never said that out loud to you. I had great friends, but I had never said it to them. And we started talking and working through that, and it helped me change my perspective. And it didn't happen like that, immediately. But the fact that I said it and recognized it and was able to start figuring out why I felt that, and was that a legitimate feeling, and all of those things were important. And then she became, from that point, we ended up actually being at the same church, and she was a mentor until she passed. And then I was thinking about this, also that Monique was also a mentor to me at that same time. Also very spiritual, beautiful personality that I could go to and talk to about spiritual things and anything. And so I realized how much of an impact that had on my life. And though I'm sad that they're gone now, I'm glad that I had the opportunity to have them in my life. And there were so many insights that came to me because of those relationships, that even if I can't recall them verbally now, they are embedded in who I have become. So if there's no person in your life that is even a couple of steps ahead of you that can advise you and pour into you, they don't have to know everything about everything. They just need to know something about something that you care about, and they know a little bit more than you, or a little bit differently than you, that you can be mentored by. That's an important relationship. And the next one are peers, people that are generally in our same age group. Doesn't have to be as you get older that those numbers kind of disappear a little bit, but generally in our same age group, in our same stage of life type thing, and that you can just share your life with, the fun things, the sad things, the challenging things, the work, all of those things that are just kind of like regular in your life. And I'm blessed to have, a group of ladies particularly, but I have a couple friends and single friends, which I think is important. Of course, we all know as single women that there are some marriages that you can't just be friends with them like that. It just doesn't work. But, I'm blessed to have a few that works. But my primary day-to-day friends are women who I love, and we text and we say crazy stuff to each other, and we just enjoy each other's company. We enjoy each other's communication. We share everything from memes on Facebook to sermons that we listen to, and everything in between that pops into our head or into our life. And that's important as well, to have those kinds of relationships. And I know that many single people don't like going to singles events because often the church does a very poor job of putting those on. And it feels like you're just being told that, just trust God and everything will be okay. And there's no real addressing of the issues that come with being single, the challenges that come with being single, the desire that comes with wanting to be married, and the loneliness that comes even. So, but the reality is that it is important to have single friends because they understand differently than your married friends do. Your married friends can sympathize if you need that, or they're like, they have a desire for you to be married as well, maybe, but your single friends, that's why we're here, because we have commonalities that we can share and we can learn and grow from each other. And we can enjoy each other and we can laugh about, and we can even joke about some of the challenges of being single. I remember when I lived in Richmond, one of the first places I lived was a high rise, and I lived on the 6th floor, and that was great until you went to the grocery store. Because it's not like, and then you have to park on the street too. So finding a park when I got home late at night was already difficult. But now I have to carry all these groceries up by myself, along with my briefcase and the whole deal. And I would carry 95 bags if I had to, so I didn't have to come back down the stairs because I'd be tired. And so that's kind of funny. But I mean, it's still annoying too, because then you have a partner, then that's a little bit easier. But there are just things that are just kind of life, and you just accept them, and you can just laugh about them with your friends who understand that. I think that when we laugh with our friends, we get shots of endorphins and oxytocin that promote positive feelings and pro-social behaviors. And I referenced this scripture before. I'll give you the reference. Proverbs 17:22, a merry heart does good like medicine, but a broken spirit dries the bones. And it's so funny how often we hear science say stuff and then we like, oh, the Bible said that already a long time ago, but y'all didn't believe the Bible. Because basically this is saying happiness makes you more well, and sadness and loneliness and bitterness makes you sick. Okay, thanks science. God had that covered already. Thanks for sharing though. When you don't laugh, especially with other people, you slowly suck the life out of your own life. Laughter with friends is a resuscitator. Even reflecting on past good memory with a friend can increase your happy hormone release. There are things that I can say right now that if I said them, my friends would bust out laughing. They happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and they would still bust out laughing. And so having peers. And then there's other physical affection appropriate to friendship. I have one friend who loves to hold my hand, and all of my friends don't do that, but she's just different. But hugging, holding hands, those type of things, they bring, again, though, that oxytocin that people say only comes from sex or breastfeeding. No, oxytocin is not generated just by those activities. It's the physical connection with somebody that you love. This is the power of friendship. And these hormones, particularly oxytocin, bonds you to these people. So even anticipating that you're going to see them or talk to them makes your mind happy. Think about David and Jonathan. David and Jonathan were peers. And the Bible expresses the friendship of these two men of God as having their souls knit together. I mean, how beautiful does that sound? And though many people have tried to make the relationship of David and Jonathan as a homosexual one, it's not. We can see from David's life that wasn't his bent, but also it's because often we don't think of men having those types of connections. But God means for men to have that too. And even though we're here as women, and it's generally easier for us to have those types of friendships, men should have those too. And I just say, be wary of dating a man that doesn't have a best friend or close friends. Close friends that lead them in the right direction is obviously important. So we want to be mindful of that. But when you are always taking your own counsel, in the multitude of counselors, there is wisdom. And when you don't have friends that can give you a different perspective and show you something different, that's a dangerous place to be when you are in your head. So at the death of Jonathan, David wrote in 2 Samuel 1:26, I am distressed for you, my brother Jonathan. You have been very pleasant to me. Your love for me was wonderful, surpassing the love of women. And if you know anything about David, you know he was not unfamiliar with the love of women at this point in his life. But he said his friendship surpassed, that love with Jonathan surpassed the love of women. And so we shouldn't diminish that reality of what God has made available to all of us, even for those of us who may not have marriage available to us at this time. Even when you are not in good times, the presence, text, call, or even memory of a friend can strengthen you. Though many may feel cheated by God because they are single and others are not, and I get that. I have felt that. And there are times when that thought pops into my head, even now. I have not overcome, I am overcoming. This is a process. And so it's not like you're going to wake up tomorrow and just create a life you love and you're never going to feel lonely, you're never going to desire. I just want to keep reiterating that that is not the point of what we're doing here. It's learning that of what we already have, what we can develop, and how we can be whole so that in whatever state we are, we can be content and joyful. The fact is that God has not left us empty-handed, but we must choose friends that feed our soul and value them for the gift they are from God. I have many friends who are from Brazil, but I had a friend that I used to live with, and she has a party whenever. Is it Tuesday? Okay, everybody come over, and they bring food, and there's like lots of food, and there's laughing and talking, and not a single occasion except for it's Tuesday and I want to hang out with you all. And this is not uncommon in the Brazilian community. And I think that one thing that we lack often is just taking time and saying, you know what? Yeah, it's Tuesday. Yeah, I have to go to work tomorrow, but I'm going to hang out with my friends. That's what I'm going to do because I need that. And to do that regularly and start making relationships a priority versus something on the back burner because it's not a man. The last relationship that I want to talk about is mentees. As we have someone pouring into us and our cup is overflowing, we should be pouring into someone else. There are younger women that need what you have. You've experienced so much. Everyone on this call have completely different experiences, even in our singleness. Some of us are older, some of us are younger, some of us are in between, and some of us have been married, some of us have never been married, some maybe not here right now, maybe widowed. We have others who are widowed. And so there are just so much that you have lived that you can share with someone else who's coming behind you. Another young lady
who may be just 16 or 17 and already on the hunt for a boyfriend because the world has told her that she doesn't have value unless she has a boyfriend. And let's be real, they're not 16 and 17 anymore. They're like 5 and 6 and 8 and 9, and they got to have a boyfriend. And so we have the opportunity as we learn this week and just everything we've learned in our life to pour into, to be big brothers and big sisters to the younger generation. And you may not be a person who does well with little kids, and that's fine. There are teenagers who need you. There are 20-year-olds who need you. There are 30-year-olds who need someone to pour into them, to show them, to hold them accountable, to show them how to manage those feelings that they have as single women and how to honor God in doing that. The endorphin rush that we get from an act of kindness doesn't last long. But however, when we make a point of continuing that through the mentorship of another person, spending time with them, teaching, encouraging, sharing great times, that happy hormone is increased regularly. And it brings with it the dopamine of doing new things, the oxytocin of laughing, bonding, and physical affection, and the serotonin of remembering the good times that you share. When we give back to others, especially when we are balanced in the other two kinds of friendships, then we can pour from a full cup, reaping the benefits of both giving and receiving. And as we talked about Timothy, Timothy was Paul's mentee. And so Paul himself had been coached and mentored by Ananias, Aquila and Priscilla, Barnabas. And so now, and then he met Timothy on his missionary journey with Silas. So then he was pouring in what he had received from others before him. When Paul recognized the gift and faithfulness of Timothy, he poured into him and his ministry to help him grow and learn as a follower of Christ and a pastor. And we can only imagine that Timothy then did the same thing as he had children growing up in his church, and that he was pouring into them, and that continued. When I was in 2020 and I went to New Zealand as a missionary, I was working in the Adventist college, which college for them is what high school is for. It's actually a combination of middle school and high school. For us, they call college, and then what we call college, they call university. So I was working in the Adventist college, a boarding college, and I was a dean in the boarding house. And typically their deans are like from university. So they're like 19, 20, 21 years old. They're young. They take a gap year and they come and they serve because it's a volunteer, stipend position, but it's good to put on your resume and that kind of stuff. And it's New Zealand and it's cool. It's not easy, but it's cool. Well, I came and I'm like old enough to be their mother and sometimes grandmother. And so it's a different relationship. I was like their mother. And so I took the time, a lot of the stuff that I'm saying to you all now, I didn't say it the same way, but I was teaching them and pouring into them. And I just went back there 3 weeks ago because they asked me to come for their graduation. Some of them had graduated while I was there. And I have relationships still with some that after they graduated, because I poured into them what I had learned and what I was learning. And particularly, I do have concerns for our teens in our early 20s. It's an age group that we're missing in a lot of churches. But I think if we were more intentional about mentoring just one, it doesn't have to be all of them. But if you have that gift, great. Invite them out over to your house or some. Like teen girls are getting so many messages from the world about who they should be and how they should be. And we have the opportunity to redirect that and to show them something different and teach them something different. And so pouring into another that God has put in your path, it's not just a good thing to do. It's actually a biblical principle. Moses and Joshua, Eli and Samuel, Deborah and Barak, Naomi and Ruth, Elijah and Elisha, and the list goes on. When God-honoring people invest in others, we create a family, church, and community that is stronger for God and for his cause and brings happiness to all in its train. And of course, the ultimate example is Jesus, because he's the ultimate example in every good thing, right? Jesus spent hours and sometimes all night getting wisdom, strength, and direction from his Father. He sought companionship and support from his disciples, who were his friends. It's like he would go to Lazarus and Mary and Martha's house because he needed a break, and he knew that he was safe there. And then Jesus poured himself out in service to the people. As singles, we need to be intentionally seeking out relationships where you get, where you share, and where you give. And I don't have the reference for this, but it says, Ellen White says, Christian sociability is altogether too little cultivated by God's people. Those who shut themselves up within themselves, who are unwilling to be drawn upon to bless others by friendly associations, lose many blessings. For by mutual contact, minds receive polish and refinement. By social intercourse, acquaintances are formed and friendships contracted, which result in a unity of heart and an atmosphere of love, which is pleasing in the sight of heaven. I went out to find a friend. I could find no one there. I went out to be a friend, and friends were everywhere. Unknown. So that's our first session for tonight. And I got to speed. Well, let me take a few questions or comments before I go to the next one. This one's is shorter, but I do want to take the time to get any comments or questions from anyone.
I think the only thing that I'm
I was saying, oh, yeah. Someone was speaking?
Yeah, go ahead again, try that again.
Yeah, no, I was saying that I can just basically confirm everything that you're saying. Because one of the thoughts that popped through my head was, like the times that I'm going through some, not so great moments. And I'll call my friends to possibly not really commiserate, but to, kind of share what I'm going through and have my friends, kind of support me during my sad moment. And I never hang up that phone sad. I always end up laughing my face off. Like, I don't even know how it has ever been possible to find comedy in my emotional turmoil, but it always happens. And yeah, my friendships are one of the most valuable things that I have to help stabilize the woes of this world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I totally agree with every single thing that you have said tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. I have lived that as well.
Yes. I'm not sure if you can hear me. Can people hear me?
I can.
Yeah, we heard that before. I think that's what someone was saying on the main.
I'm barely hearing you, but I know that you guys are speaking, so I'm gonna see if I can. Can you hear me?
Is there something in your background?
Oh yeah, there's someone in the background here. Sorry about that. Let me see if I could reposition myself.
Okay, no, we can hear you now. That's good. You're good.
Okay, I'm getting that. Okay. Yes, I wanted to also say that I appreciate the presentation with the information shared. It was very true to life, as the ladies mentioned, because one of the things I recognize in just in general in church, many times people may come, and the ones who you hear complaining about the fact that, hey, you know, this church is not warm, or, you know, they're not friendly, nobody said hello to me, etc. And I never really even expect, you know, the perspective never even dawned on me until you hear them complaining about it. Because I mean, when I come in, I'm like, it's just for me to cross paths with someone, to actually, you know, make a comment, try to be a friend or make a friend, etc. And it's yourself making yourself friendly that makes a difference. And also, you know, just the fact that you could also get involved. I think that makes a difference as well when you are make it a point to just not be solo onto yourself. The fact that you're going to be involved in whatever the role is that you're taking part in just exposes you to have interactions with others in general, and that puts you in a better position overall. So again, you know, as you mentioned, never really looked at it in that way as you mentioned it about mentee, but I guess these are very much options of doing so, because many times we might have come up in this faith and definitely used to certain things such as Sabbath school and or Pathfinders, and, you know, just for the mere, you know, option of offering yourself up to help, pushing that position, and I think that's what Pathfinding is in a big way. You come through the ranks, but you come back to help. You oftentimes find yourself, either whether you're there consistently or even just able to come back and teach or honor or something, gives you that option. And then when it came to, when you mentioned about mentor, I saw that to be true in the efforts of when I was looking like for prayer partners, etc. And then peers, I didn't have shortage of those, but in the pandemic year, sometimes out of sight, out of mind, and you kind of maybe not as in touch with the peers as you had initially been, you know, consistently. And so it takes a little bit more effort to kind of reach out even when others are not doing the same. So, and that's okay. Yeah. So.
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm trying to figure out what that voice is. Can y'all hold on 1 second?
I'm wondering if that's my people in the background here. Sorry about that.
Yeah, if you muted, that's what it was.
Okay.
She said it may have been her people in the background, and I don't hear it. So I think when she muted,
Okay.
That's what it was.
Okay. Anyone else want to share any? I'm sorry, I'm just trying to manage all of this. But does anybody else want to share any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I do. You know some of my story. My best girlfriends are deceased. Been deceased for a while now. And I have a girlfriend. We weren't communicating for a while, but we've been communicating for quite a while now, and it's been absolutely beautiful. I mean, I could get off the phone and I could think about something we were talking about and just laugh, as you were saying. I stay involved. I try to do that. I try to stay involved and stay busy, even if it's with my neighbors, even if it's with taking people someplace. I try to do that. I have quite a few associates, and I mentor. I have some young people who I do talk to. A couple of them called me last week, feeling really low. It's like I didn't know what to do, didn't know who to talk to, and I couldn't think of nobody else but you. But I had quite a few. I had, how do I say it? Some women friends at one point. But unfortunately, that didn't work out. But I have a dear girlfriend who I love dearly. She did get married about 4 or 5 months ago. And thank God she still kept her relationship with me. And you made a comment about that. A young lady said to me, she's like in her 40s, about a week or two ago. I was on the phone talking with her. And she said a girlfriend of hers said to her that every time you get in a relationship, well, she's married now. Every time you get in a relationship, you change. That you like basically forget me. And I think a lot of women do that when they get married. Now, I realize you do. And I didn't comment. I felt impressed by God, because sometimes I say something, but I felt impressed by God at that point just to listen. And so I didn't say anything. But a lot of times when women do get married, and I know you have to, you know, you're not going to get all the time you were getting when you were single. I understand that. But a lot of times when we get married or get in a relationship, and I think that's a trick of the enemy, we cut off friends. Cut off friends. And,
I have not had that experience, but I understand it. And what I will say to that is not that that's part of this process to me, is when you have a full, vibrant life and love and passion, then you don't feel like you need to get everything from that person. You're like a whole person going to a whole person. And he had friends and he had hobbies, and obviously there has to be some coming together. You can't just be off doing stuff on your own all the time. But because you both are complete in God, then you don't have to be so connected to that person that if you're away from them, you just can't, you lose yourself, in that. And so I feel like I don't have a lot of, the friends that I've had for more than 20, sometimes 25, 30 years. And so even in their transition in life, yeah, there are times you have little kids, you can't do all the stuff, and maybe some stuff's going on in your marriage, you can't, but like overall, we've maintained connection and relationship and going out and all of that. And I just think that some people don't have that wholeness that allows you to do that. And that's why we're here this 3 days. So to make sure that we do that.
Yeah. One more thing. You talked about the seniors. I actually had a lot of senior friends. I hung out. I miss Sister Cheers dearly. I mean, we hung out. She would take me to meet, like, because I'm from Delaware. She would take me in Pennsylvania, Chester, and actually to meet not just a female friend, but a gentleman that, no one really knew. And I was always close with the seniors. Like if we at the table at Sharon Temple, when I was there, they had a table where the seniors would sit. And I remember a couple people like, you can't sit there, that's for the seniors. And the seniors would say, sit right on down here. And that caused conflict there. Amongst the other people who was like, you don't be sitting, don't sit there. But I miss them. Most of them are deceased. Sister Cheers passed about 4 years ago. Miss Dot, she's been going for 10. Then my mom, I mean, really close. I love the seniors. I absolutely adore the seniors. I can hang out with the seniors all day long, and they have me bagging up, and give me life. So yeah, and I miss them. I miss them dearly. And my friends who I was friends with for 30 years, they're gone. My deep, close friends, And it's hard to find friends today. It really is. You're very fortunate to have that. It's hard. I do have one, keep us in prayer. And I love her. I absolutely love her, and she loves me. And I'm pretty, how do I say it? Lovingly, if I see you go down the wrong track and I love you, and we're close, I think I'm gonna say something, talk to you about it. And that's what our distance for a little bit, because I had to do that with her. And it didn't go too well in the beginning, It didn't, and some other things, but praise God, she came around. you know, and we're doing really, really well. And I love her dearly. I mean, we laugh all the time.
Well, thank you,
I'm
Roberta.
laughing,
I
you know,
appreciate that. Thank you for sharing. I'm sorry, we need to go to the next part. I don't want to keep y'all over time, and I'm already promising you that we will be over time a little bit, just because we had so many issues. But yeah, I think it's important that we don't forget the seniors, and because often they are forgotten in society as well as the church, and so we need to do that. So thank you for that, and I know you get a lot out of it too. It's not like you're just giving, but you're getting from that. So we're going to go on to our final. I'm going to get the bonus session in. That one's going to be, I'm going to try to make that quick, but I really want to give it to you. It's kind of a little bit of a detour, but I think that you'll appreciate it. So when this is called Single Vision, and this is talking about purpose. When I was 17 years old, my friend Sophia was a senior and had been dating Kevin for 2 years, and I've changed the names. He proposed and she accepted. Their families knew each other. They were from a small town. Everyone knew them. And it was kind of expected for them to get married. It was the next step in their romance. And in that small town, you know, girls got married pretty young, 17, 18, 19 years old. For her whole senior year, she was planning this huge church wedding. At lunch and recess, we would talk about the plans, look at colors, pick dresses, detail after detail. However, something inside of me was unsettled. That alert that I now understand as red flags was flying all over this union. I felt so compelled to ask one question. Do you really want to marry Kevin? Or do you feel like you have to because everyone expects it? But I never did because I was too young to understand what God had shown me or gifted me at that time. I remember every night I'd go to bed trying to plan a way I could say it without offending her. And every day I would chicken out. For the whole school year, I chickened out of asking that one question because I didn't know back then that it could have helped, and I didn't know how to help. Well, Sophia graduated that spring and got married. I attended the wedding, celebrated the union, hoped for the best, and put those red flags out of my mind. Sophia and Kevin set off on their married life. 1 year later, when I finished my senior year, Sophia came to my graduation. It was the first time I had seen her since her wedding. And when I asked how Kevin was, she said, "We're divorced." She went on to confirm that neither one of them wanted to get married, but they felt pressure from their family, friends, and community. They didn't want to disappoint anyone, and they didn't even admit it to each other until it was too late. I felt horrible. That is the moment that I realized I never wanted anyone to go through this because they felt pressure if I could help it. I never wanted any woman to ignorantly engaging in unhealthy relationships or avoiding relationships because of fear of choosing incorrectly. And I never wanted to feel the regret of not knowing how to help women recognize the warning signs and cultivate their own alert. I've been committed to not just to growing my own skills, but the support needed to make right choices to get from anyone will do to the I do that is meant for you. What I now know is that there are not just red flags, but orange and green ones that help women choose healthy relationships that can stay married, raise children if wanted, and live the happily ever after. This and so many other situations in my life is what led me to create a single mission. The coaching and course creation company that I started in 2020 for Christian single women. all my life, people have come to me to talk about their life and relationships, and I have given them counsel, godly counsel, biblical counsel. And I'll be honest, few people ever listen to me. And not because they think I'm wrong, but because I believe, because they have missed the first three things that we talked about this week. That deep, intimate relationship with God, that covenant relationship, that deep understanding of themselves and love for themselves, that they are whole regardless of whether they ever get married. And then those healthy platonic relationships, friendships, mentors, mentees that can help them and pour into them and that they can pour into, that makes life joyful and happy as well, so that when we make choices about who to date, we make that from a place of wholeness and not brokenness. But as one of my friends told me a few weeks ago, she's like, you warned us all and we just didn't listen. And you've been right every time. 100% of the time you've been right. And she's like, you should put that in your marketing material. And I just laughed and I said, well, the fact is that I'm not right 100% of the time. God is right 100% of the time. And I try to use his measuring stick when I give counsel or share with other people. So when I rely on him, I get to be right. I get to be credited for being right when it's really him. But let's reverse back to before I was 17 years old. I was 9, 10, 11 years old, and I see myself right now lying on the living room floor, reading The Adventist Home, Child Guidance, Messages to Young People, The Complete Courtship, The Complete Marriage, The Complete Parent, and any book like that, Christian relationships. God was preparing me for this. He saw me here tonight talking to you all. I didn't know that. In 2020, I told you I was in New Zealand. I had a friend who was there also as a missionary, and he became my friend while we were there. We worked at the same school. And near the end of my time in New Zealand, I got an offer to come to Brazil and basically do the same thing that I had done in New Zealand. And I would like to go to Brazil. I desire to take a trip there at some point, because I have many friends who live there or who are from there. But I decided to not take that offer and to come back to the United States and work on a single mission. And he was like really kind of aggressive and angry with me. And he's just like, you said you wanted to go to Brazil and now you get this opportunity. And just because it's hard, because I don't speak Portuguese, I was learning at the time. So obviously that would be challenging. And I was really hurt. And I spent like the next day, just kind of like that night and then the next day, just kind of thinking about that. And I'm like, God, am I really running away from this opportunity that you want me to take? Or am I really supposed to go back and work on this ministry? And that is when God clearly showed me, girl, when you were 9, I was preparing you for this. When you were 10 and 11 and your whole life, I have been preparing you for this. You can go to Brazil some other time. And that thing became so clear. And I actually started crying because there were so many times that I've seen people talk about their calling and how they saw from when they were young and God had a plan for me. And I was just like, I don't know if God has been preparing. I mean, I know I like doing this. I know I enjoy it, but I just didn't feel like I could see God's plan, his thread through my life. And in that day, as I spent like pretty much the whole day thinking about this, God showed me step by step by step by step how he had led me to this. And then I knew I wasn't going to Brazil. And of course, when I shared this with him, then he was just like, oh yeah, you definitely need to go and do that. We grow up in a church where, in Christendom, where it's like, if you're a pastor or you're an evangelist or you're a missionary, you're like, oh, I got a calling, I got a calling, I got a calling for this. But how many times have you heard somebody who is an accountant say, oh, I was called to be an accountant. I was called to be a doctor. I was called to be in HR. I was called to be a psychologist. We don't hear that. But the truth is, God has a calling on all of our lives, and we're not all supposed to be pastors or evangelists or missionaries in the traditional missionary sense. Obviously, we all have a mission but God has a calling on our life. And if we listen, he will direct us. And at some point, we can look back at our life. Sometimes we make it almost harder than it needs to be, because God has gifted us all. And I'm just like, you may not know exactly what to do with your gift, but use it. And as you use it, God will keep nudging you to the thing that may be the ultimate thing or the main thing right now. I don't necessarily think it's just one thing that you have to do for all your life. Some people do, and that's what they are supposed to do. We all have a calling. And God has, in all of those callings, all of those giftings that God is leading you to use in certain areas, is always ultimately for that same ultimate purpose, which is for his kingdom, to reach people for his kingdom. You can be an artist and reach people for his kingdom. You don't have to be a singer. You can be someone who draws art, who paints, who does sculptures. Like, if that's the gift that God gives you, it's important to me, even for us, but even for our younger people, to teach them that your calling from God could be something totally outside the box, because God doesn't live in the box of what we decide is a calling and what isn't a calling. It was even at this time that I recognized that my singleness up to this point was critical to the plan. And here's the thing. If I was, say, 16 or 21 and God had told me, I need you to be single till you're 53 so that I can fulfill my plan in you, would I have been pleased with that? No. I would not have been. And he knew that. So he just didn't bother to tell me. He just led me and directed me and went this way and that way and navigated me to where he wanted me to be. And that's true of all of us. I'm not saying our singleness has to do with everybody's calling, but I'm saying for me, I know it does. And the path that God leads us is the path that we would choose if we could see the full picture, which we never can. And so he doesn't show us. He just says, take this step, take that step, go this way, go that way, as we listen to it. God has prepared me to teach this path by having to walk it. And I haven't appreciated that every day. No, I have not. And I was unhappy for a long time. But now, my single vision is a single mission will train Christian churches how to develop and prioritize local single ministries that consistently and appropriately attend to the unique needs of singles in their church and community, and to create a church culture that embraces them as supported, contributing, and valued members. Our churches need to embrace single people, particularly single women, because I think single women are more underserved than single men. they're more excluded or on the fringes often. So what is your single vision? What is the thing that God has been preparing you to do that you are not doing, or not doing at the level that he has called you to? Some people don't know, but I do believe the Bible supports the idea that we have a purpose beyond living, working, churching, and dying. And I believe that it generates a love of our life, a passion, when we do the thing that God has gifted us to do in service to others. God never gifts us to serve ourselves alone. Our gifting is to serve others. And some people have many gifts. As I was preparing for this 3 days, and I was like posting on social media and all this, one of my friends, she texted me and she was just like, hey, you need to say something about that video. Hey, you need to put this cap. And then she did like design, all of these little flyers to put on so that people knew what was going on, because I'm not a social media person that much. But she has that gift. And so I was using some of her stuff and using her language and, the little flyers, and she posted it. She used her gift in service to me, but also in service to other people. We think that it has to be some huge thing, but a lot of our calling is really behind the scenes serving, because everyone's not going to be up front. And so don't diminish the thing that God has gifted you to do, and say, God, how can I use this? How can I do that? And if you have many gifts, good on you. I want you to take a minute to think about, just make a list of your talents and skills. And as usual, you'll dig deeper into this at home, but dig into your talents and skills. How many people have more than 5 things written down? All right. Cool. I'm gonna skip some of this. I'm gonna look at, don't turn to this, but in Exodus 4, verse 2, God is talking to Moses, and he asked him, like, what's in your hand? If you don't know exactly what you are called to do, use what you have in your hand, in your mind, to begin serving. as I said, and you may be expecting God to maybe show you like he showed me, but it still took, I mean, I was 50. I mean, it didn't happen, you know, and maybe if I had asked or been paying attention, I was doing a lot of the things already. I just didn't know it was that God had been preparing me. So it's like I was walking in the thing that I love to do. I love doing this. And so I was walking in that, and then God was like, yeah, I have been preparing you for that. So what was in my hand was the gift to be able to do this type of thing. What is in your hand? Then I want you to write down what you are passionate about. There are things that you may be good at, but you just may not like doing them, you know? But what are those things that you are passionate about? You really love doing these things. And then maybe some things that you are interested in, you're just like, well, that looks interesting. I don't know, I haven't tested it, but maybe I can try it out, volunteer, see how it works. I had a friend tell me when I asked her this question, she said, I love to clean. She's like, I love organizing people's houses. I mean, I would love to do that. That's a gift. I love to clean. I like it to be clean, but I don't necessarily need to be the one cleaning it. You know what I'm saying? That's a gift. Billions of dollars in business organizing and cleaning people's homes. In fact, my friend who I told you I used to live with, she has a house cleaning business. Now, when you come from, she was a teacher in Brazil. When you come to the United States, then they kind of take away all of your credentials and you kind of have to start from the ground up. So she started cleaning houses, and you know, it's an easy business to get into. And so now she's been doing it for 15 years and very successfully. But so don't despise the things that people may say, oh, that's, I mean, you what? That's not a, no. 1 Corinthians 12, 4 through 11, there's a diversity of activity, but there are diversity of needs in a diverse population. When we try to serve everyone, we serve no one. Who do you want to serve? Think about the people that you have the biggest burden for. Who do you want to serve? Because everyone's not going to be as good with the seniors as Roberta is, but then everyone may not be as good with the children as someone else is. And everyone's not going to be as good with teens or men or couples or whomever. Who do you want to serve? What is the thing? Some people are concerned about people with mental health challenges, and some people want to help people with physical challenges. Some people don't try to do everything because then you end up doing nothing or you burn yourself out, which is not, we want to be balanced. This is, the whole thing is about being balanced. So if you had to pick one, what is that population that is on your heart, that God has put on your heart, that you resonate with? And you're like, oh, I want to serve them. I don't necessarily know how yet, but I want to serve them. In many of our churches, we have a scattershot method of evangelism where it's just like, and typically the harvest is not, you know, that great. I mean, of course, we know when one comes to the Lord that heaven rejoices and we rejoice, but God wants more than one. And if we can be intentional, the world is intentional. Business people are intentional about who they market to, who they target, with what ad they target them. And we need to be intentional about how we evangelize so that we can reach, because the Bible says the harvest is ripe. That means there are many people out there who want to know, but our methods are so like, you know, we aren't reaching them. The same is true with, and so imagine if just the 5 people that are on this call and the others who've been here over the last 3 days use your gift to reach a certain population. And through whatever you did, they learned about God, or they heard, or they saw God differently. That could be 5 people, or it could be 5,000 people. But everyone, that's why there's a diversity of gifts, but everyone's supposed to be participating in the mission. When we all develop a sensitivity to the calling that God has on our life, then we can have laser focus on the targets that our ministry can reach for the kingdom. Our target, our single focus, will be on building the kingdom of God through the special and unique calling that God has on your life. So the last thing that we need to create a life we love is to get single vision. Focus on the thing. I've spent a lot of time in marketing trainings in the last 2 years. And even though a lot of them have, different approaches and tell you some different things, one thing that they all say, every single one to the last, from the biggest to the smallest, they all say, pick something and focus on that. Don't try to do everything. Even if at some point maybe you add a podcast, maybe you add this, maybe pick one thing you're going to do and do that until you succeed, and then add other things. And so even in our evangelism, sometimes we're trying to do so much in the church instead of let's all use our talents toward this. Or let this group will use our talents toward this. And then we can focus, and then we can be more effective. Let's all get single vision. The 4 pillars to create a life you love. Reimagine love with God. It's a covenant relationship. It's not a dictatorship or dogmatic relationship. Reimagine love for yourself. If you don't love yourself, you cannot love anyone else appropriately or correctly, healthily. Develop healthy platonic relationships. Get a mentor, get a mentee, have peers. You don't have to have a bunch of friends. You have 1 or 2 good ones. Remember, when we look for friends, we don't find them, but when we are a friend, that's where they're everywhere, because a lot of people are looking for friends. And then finally, get single vision. Ask God to show me, Lord, I know the things that I'm passionate about. I know the things that I'm gifted in. How can I use one of those things in your service this week, next week? Okay. Here's your bonus session. Someone asked me this question the last time I did, and this, I think Renee can attest to the fact that I almost never do this the same way. Like, the pillars are the same, but I never actually do it the same. So in different groups, I do it differently. There are different things to address. But when I was at Emphasis in September, someone asked me about how does a single woman or I'm gonna say single woman, determine what kind of guy she should be dating, or how to know if this guy is good for her. So I thought I'd throw in this quick bonus for you. Now, if you missed Monday, then you're at a little bit of a deficit. I'm going to edit those videos and then send them to you, so everyone will have the recordings of all 3 days. But we talked about our reimagining love for God and these 6 points of how God loves us. God is love, and so he's the model. He communicates with us. He's trustworthy. He has given us, we are his priority. We have his affection. We have his body. He sacrificed his body for us. He's asking us to do the same for him. Give me your body, give me your affection, give me your attention, give me your trust, give me your time, give me your words. Obviously that was really quick. It took us 2 hours to talk about it before. But here is what you do as you are meeting guys and you're interested in guys. How does he communicate? Does he listen and talk? Does he just talk and not listen? Does he just listen and not talk? There needs to be a balance in communication. God talks to us, but he listens to us. We talk to God and we should listen to him too. There needs to be a balance, because what happens is if he talks too much, then you don't get to be a part of that. And it's very self-serving. But if he listens too much, you're going to be struggling your whole relationship trying to get him to share with you. You need to have someone that's balanced in communication. In trust, does he keep his word? When he says, I'm going to call, does he call? When he says he's going to come at a certain time, does he come at that time? When he says, I'm going to be with my mother, and then you find out he was somewhere else, not with his mother. Can you trust his word? Do you feel comfortable when he tells you something? Do you get a little prick in your stomach that's like, something about that don't feel right? Number 3, do you have his affection? At the level of your relationship, do you know that when you're with him, you are the focus of his attention? Does he text you when y'all are separate? Does he call appropriately? Not stalking you or anything. Is there appropriate level of affection? Does he hold your hand? Now, I have a whole thing about the types of intimacy that we should be involved in while we're single. And I'll just put mine out there. I don't think we should be kissing and anything more than that. So I think holding hands should be you can hug, not like, not just a hug, not like, but like, I feel like we get into dangerous territory when we take our intimacy before we're married, past that. But, and I believe there's biblical support for that, but I don't really have time to share that. But check out 1 Corinthians chapter 7. I think it's verse 3 or 4 or 5. It is not good for a man to touch a woman. And that word touch means to attach himself to. Scientifically, when you kiss someone, you attach yourself to them. I looked up the research. And so I believe that supports the idea of not kissing while you're dating. But again, you need to prayerfully take that to God. But is there affection appropriate? Does he, and see, this is different. God is saying, will you give me your body? And the person who's God honoring is not asking for your body. He should be attracted to you and you should be attracted to him, but his values are the same as your values. When you talk about no sex and I've decided for myself, no kissing, and I dated someone in that context. And it was difficult for him. He agreed with that, but he did not share that value. If I had given in, he would have been okay with that. So you want someone that shares your values about sexual intimacy before marriage, and so that you feel your body is safe with them. I dated someone else who was an evangelist. And honestly will tell you that I thought that he was going to rape me the night that I was with him. And I never wanted to be in a room alone with him ever again. He would not keep his hands. And I was like trying to get, like literally trying to get him off. If someone doesn't honor your body before you get married, they are certainly not going to honor it after, because then they're going to feel they have a right. And in some sense they do, but they don't have a right to take it. We should be giving ourselves to our spouse freely and openly. Will you give me your words? Does he speak kindly, gently, and appropriately to you? Even in times of conflict, do you trust that there is no aggression and violence in his tone? I got a story for like everything. So I'm gonna tell you a story. I was dating this guy. He was not a Christian. And you know, I was young and that's just what I was doing. I wasn't planning on marrying him because I had already decided a long time ago, but I just, you know, he was nice and whatever. So I was dating this guy. We were driving down the road one time. I had no clue what we were talking about, but out of the clear blue, like he just yelled at me. And he yelled at me in a way that I knew if I stuck around for a little bit longer, he was going to hit me. Y'all, you know the difference. Like we all get excited sometimes and our voice is raised and whatever, but there was violence in that yell. And I was just like, oh, okay, I'm going to need to peace out. So what I did was, I didn't say anything. I didn't say, don't yell at me, don't, because my father doesn't even, well, he's deceased now, but my father didn't yell at me. No man is going to come and yell at me. So we went back and got back. I think we were driving my car, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, I had my own car. We went back to his apartment and I was just like, okay, I got to go, you know, whatever, study. I was in school and stuff. And I left and I never came back. I ain't say goodbye. I ain't break up, and I don't need closure. I don't need none of that. It closed for me once you yelled at me like that, and I just moved on with my life. And I promise you, I never saw him again till literally he came into the Salvation Army when I was working there. And I was just like, and this was like 7, 8, 10 years. I don't even know how many years later. It was many years later. If he is not speaking to you appropriately, and not just not yelling at you, but saying kind things to you, affirming you. God affirms us throughout his word as the love of his life, the apple of his eye. Someone who really cares about you is going to do that, and you should be doing the same as well. We should, all of the things that I'm saying that they should do to us, we should be as well doing for them. And so your words, give me your words. And then finally, your time. Men make time for what is important for them. We all make time for what's important for us. And so if he's got time for his buddies and his hobbies and his this and his that, and he doesn't have time for you, you need to keep it pushing. You need to keep it pushing. So that is my bonus session for you all as you are prayerfully. I pray that God will lead you all to lead someone to your life. But I pray that before you get to that, that you will take the steps to creating a life you love holistically. And to that end, as I told you yesterday, this is a business, so I'm going to offer to sell you something. And here it goes. I'm going to put the link in the chat if you're interested. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm doing a Create a Life You Love boot camp. It's 1 day, 1 Sunday, 8 hours, 11 to 7, where all of the assignments that I told you to do, that most of you did a little bit while we were on the call. Maybe you did some later, but you probably won't implement because you don't have accountability, you don't have a plan, you don't have the action steps, all of that. at the boot camp, we will go through this and we will get you a plan of action, a person of accountability. It might be me or it might be somebody else who's in the boot camp. We will provide you any assistance in developing that, in activating that. We'll have habit trackers and how did you track that you're doing what you need to do, whatever you need to be able to make the changes that you feel will even help you prioritize, and we'll give you a system whereby you can change your habits. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to change and then willpower. We'll give you an actual system to change your habits, whichever, in the appropriate order, so that when you leave, you can walk away and you can start 2023 on that new foot. You can actually start before, because it will be before that. The date is December 18th. I will have the workbook, we'll have all the worksheets, we'll have the habit tracker, we'll have whatever you need. And the price for that is normally $147, but the Black Friday price for that is $97. You'll have all the coaching, you'll have all the worksheets, you'll have the plan, you'll have the habit tracker, you'll have 8 hours of me guiding you step by step through that process for $97. Right now, I am putting the link in the chat. And if you are interested, you can click on that. You can click on that. This price will be good until Tuesday, the 29th. And then it will go up, and I will be opening it up to the world. And it will go back to the $147 price. But you will basically have 8 hours of coaching, and 1 hour of coaching with me costs $350. So for $97, you get 8 hours of coaching. I can't even calculate what that is, but it's, well, several $1,000s in coaching, and you will have a written plan. You will write it, but we will work on it together. That will help you to walk through and make these changes, because we all know that what happens is we get all this good information. We take it in, we write it down, we think, oh, that's great, I'm going to do that. And then the Satan comes and takes that seed and snatches it away. And we have to start all over the next time. Like, oh yes, I'm going to change. Oh yes, And I think I told some of you that this is kind of what happened with me doing this. Like, I've never done this before from the perspective of just creating my own event and inviting people to it. But I went to a training, I took all the notes, and they were like, you got to do it. And you know what I did? I said, I'm going to do it, because I've been to a million trainings. I spent a lot of money trying to learn how to sell and make money off this business, as well as help people, which is, the purpose. And it hasn't worked because I haven't implemented all the stuff. And I just said, I'm going to do it. And here I am, and I've done it. And we've reached the end of day 3. There was like stress and all of this. And with all whatever small issues, we didn't even have a lot of issues, but here we are. We're at the end of day 3, and I did it. I did it, y'all. I'm so happy. But the reality is we go to so many things over our lifetime, and we can look back and think, if only I had done it then, where would I be now? And so the offer is, the link is there. And I will leave it up for the next few minutes. And I'll also send you an email with the link in it, so that, you have until Tuesday. But I would love to help you walk through this process and see us all make the changes in our life that we have learned that God wants us to make, to build our spiritual life, to deepen it with God in those spiritual disciplines, to deal with the areas of our life where we are not loving ourselves, to, build and develop those mentor relationships and platonic relationships, and to find our purpose and start walking in it. So, any questions or comments? About anything, it doesn't just have to be about. But if you want to ask about the boot camp, I'm happy to talk about that too.
You mentioned about your gift, your calling, and how God made it really clear to you what your gift was. I've heard, and I'm sure we all probably heard, some people, like you mentioned, don't know what their gift is. I know my gift, and I just sat here for the first time in my life. My strongest gift is in evangelizing. That's what I do. It comes very natural for me. See, I talk. It comes very natural. And I love to do it. It's where I get my most joy from, is doing that. And I'm doing it wherever I'm at. And I don't try. It's like I don't have to try to do it. I can't help it. I just can't help it. Well, and I love that. I think my problem has always been, it wasn't the way that I thought it should be. Because an evangelist, it's in so many different forms. Some of them travel the world, some of them, and it's just in so many different ways. So I guess because it wasn't the way that I thought, I'm thinking maybe that's it. It wasn't in the way that I thought it should be, that I was missing something. But maybe it is. And sometimes I think that God wants me to be single, like Jeremiah. He wants me to be single. Now I will comment on the you said about the kissing. Yeah, I agree with you. That's off limits. Holding hands can be dangerous too. You got to really be careful. It's something about touch.
Yes, I agree.
Something about touch. You have to be careful even with that. And everything you said, Lorraine, through God, because truly it's nothing but God that gives you the wisdom and knowledge. All those flags, everything, because God wouldn't, all those things. I experienced the guy with the tone. And I didn't date. I wasn't one who dated, but this was the first time I dated, and I'm talking like 15 years ago. I was in Wildwood, because I usually go every year, and he came down. And I was like, and I already had in me, God was showing me that he wasn't right. But I was like, okay, try to give him the benefit of the doubt. My kids call me Miss Benefit of the Doubt. So give him the benefit of the doubt. And that's my other gift. My strong gift is discernment. And I got my cat. He's trying to get attention. And I wasn't doing what he wanted. He wanted to kiss. No, that's off. And he raised his voice. Oh, you Miss Goody too. And I didn't say a word. I just didn't say a word. I ain't see that brother ever again. So run. These are, God definitely will show us. And sometimes we just ignore it. We blow it off, but it'll save us a lot of heartache and a whole lot of pain.
I think that if we, and I'm just going to keep saying this, and anyone who's been on here, even one night, but if you've been here all three, you have all the tools that you need to do this. You have what you need. So my offer is, if you're just like, yeah, I have what I need, but I know I'm not going to do it if I'm by myself. I'm just not. Like, I have experience with myself, and I know I'm not getting ready to do this if I'm left to my devices. I'm going to get distracted. Something else is going to happen. But you have everything you need. And I feel like if we do this, and as I said, I'm still in this process too. I have my priorities, and I started where I knew I needed to start. Then we create a life that we don't want to sacrifice to something that's outside of God's will. And that's the beautiful part, is that we don't want to sacrifice it to something that's outside of God's will. It's not just, you know, well, he's not good enough for me, or he don't got his stuff together. It's just like, no, I hear God telling me, because I'm in communication with him regularly. Now I can hear him saying, no, that's not the one. And I know that you are lonely sometimes, and I know that you desire this, but this person is not going to bring you the joy that you already have. In fact, he's going to steal some of the joy that you have. So
for real.
But I also want to give, you know, just Jen and Sabrina, if you just have any final comments, because, you know, I want to let you go. It's 8:19 now. I don't want to hold you all too long, but if you have any final comments you would like to make before we wrap up, out.
Get down from there before you get in trouble.
And I want to, of course, thank you all for being here. I appreciate you taking your time.
I would say, let me see if I can hear. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, first of all, the comment I wanted to make was just that I'm very appreciative of your taking hold of your calling and sharing your insight with us. It sounds like some very basic principles. They're very rich and deep and real, authentic principles that make, you know, very, you know, big impact. So, and there's actually, I probably would definitely reach out to you via email, because there is like a group or two, but mostly one singles group that could definitely probably benefit from, you know, the presentations. Have to get you, you know, connected to the leadership there and let them, you know, communicate with you on how they can coordinate with you.
Okay, that'd be great. You have my email, of course, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah.
And yeah, most definitely. And yeah, because coming into this, it's kind of like, oh, you know, you feel like, I mean, if I'm honest, and not that the promotion was leading in this way in any way, shape, or form. It's just some preconceived thoughts that I had that I'm like, okay, maybe in this you know, maybe in this option that my friend shared with me, because it was a friend of mine who shared me the thing. I said, well, maybe you could figure out some things that I may be doing wrong. Maybe I could figure out, you know, to make more impression. You know, maybe it's some things that we're, you know, blinded to, or all these kind of things. It's like, these are the kind of thought processes that were at first, you know, in my mind, but this is a different shift altogether. It's kind of like what we are equipped with anyway as being a single person anyhow, and what we should have, what we should also be focusing on and being an individual, period, whether single and or in a relationship, to be honest. Right. And so I guess just calibrating that makes a difference. I just want to make that comment.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And yeah, I try to make sure that people know that my particular niche is not helping you find a man or, you know, figure all that out. There are people who do that, and, you know, God bless them. I told y'all one of them reached out to me on Facebook, and I responded to her, and, you know, very kindly, and she's actually thanked me for, yes, thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. And that, you know, she helps, you know, Christian professional women find, you know, ready men and get ready to say I do. And I told her, I said, I'm not in that headspace right now, because I'm really trying to build this ministry. But I said, if I have some friends and they are interested, and so I'll let y'all know, if you're interested, I can share her contact information with you. She's on Facebook. She's like, she has a group or something. I'm not going to join the group because I'm already a part of a bunch of groups that I need to get out of. because I'm just overwhelmed with all of that. And because I'm not prepared to or interested really, I mean, if God brought someone to me, then that's different, but I'm not out searching for a husband right now because this is my priority. But if anybody is interested, I'm happy to share her contact, information on Facebook, and you can reach out to her, because I don't think that that's a wrong thing to do. And she is a Christian. And so I'm happy to share that with you. But yeah, that's not my niche. I want us to, be whole.
Can I make one more comment? When the lady, is that Lady J? Is that who was speaking?
Yes, that was. I think I'm gonna. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Sabrina say one thing, and then, or say what if you had.
How do you get singles involved and get to church? Because I sent out quite a few texts as well. And it seems hard to get some of the singles, and even the church, some of our churches, a couple of leaders said to me, some of our churches are really hard. We had a family life thing, and I talked to them after we had a meeting, the leaders, and I said, I questioned it 3 or 4 times and I never got a response prior to, are they going to be speaking to the singles too? And it was good, but I felt really left out, because everything they were speaking to were to married people. Mm-hmm. So how do you get them involved? Not the singles and things like this for singles, and then the church as a whole involved in
that's my mission ultimately, but or my vision. But it's not an answer that I have today, and it's kind of going church by church and trying to put it out there. And I think a lot of times singles aren't interested because they're so used to getting what they get, they don't expect to hear something different. So sometimes you have to share what you've heard, and then people are like, oh wow, I didn't know, I thought it was going to be the same old. And I know I've been like that myself at times. I'm just like, no, I'm good. I know Jesus loves me and he's my husband and all that. So I don't got, I'm good. And so that to me is a reality, because the church has not been effective for so long, that as you grow up in it, you just are like, okay, well, they're going to just have the same old thing at the retreat, the same old thing at this. They're not going to talk to singles at the family life. They're not, and so you get complacent with the idea that somebody might actually say something that's effective for you as a single person. And so we just, pray and keep and sharing. And I have a YouTube channel. I think
you got a YouTube channel?
I do. And I have a few short videos on there, but I'm going to start doing more stuff like this. I think it's also a single mission if you search it. Then I'm going to do like I've been doing short clips on Instagram Live. And so I'm going to start doing short clips on different topics, and then maybe people can ask questions and I can do a video on that. So that's kind of how but it's 8:27. I wanted, Sabrina, if you'd like to share anything or just make any comment, then we're going to close out.
I enjoyed the 2 days that I was on here. Mm-hmm. I feel better. I just pray that God will just continue to strengthen me, strengthen all of us as we end this process. Yes. And be obedient to do what he have us to do. Because like you said, we all have gifts. Some of us may know what they are. Some of us may not know none of them. I know a few of mine. Mm-hmm. And I'm praying for a deeper spirit of discernment, which is much needed in this time in our lives. And I'm just thankful and grateful for this opportunity. And you just keep moving forward in the Lord, and he will direct your path. And it was nice meeting all of you.
was nice
And
meeting you.
I enjoyed the sessions. I did learn something.
Great. And as I said, I'm going to edit the videos and then I'm going to send it to everybody, you know, who had registered. And so let's go ahead and pray. I just want to thank you all for sticking with me, for taking your time and sharing. And I can't tell you how much that means to me, especially my first time out on this. Of course, I've done this before for other churches, but just kind of my own just initiative. And I can't tell you how much it means to me that you all would trust me with this, with your time, and be a part of this conversation and this process.
Hey.
So let us pray. I'm going to pray and then I will wish you all adieu. Again, the boot camp is open until, well, for that price until Tuesday, and I'll be sending out emails and stuff. Our Father and our God, we thank you, Lord, for your many blessings, and we ask, Lord, that you would be with every lady who registered, even those who were not able to join us on the calls, that they would be blessed by the videos, but certainly those who have taken their time to be with me and to make this an enjoyable experience, and for me to just have someone to talk to. And I appreciate all that they have shared, and I appreciate their, you know, encouragement and affirmation of what you're doing in my life, and help me to just continue to share that with people everywhere I go. I thank you, Lord, for who you are. And I ask, Lord, that you would, if it is within your will, that you would help us to be whole and happy and joyful, but then also to bring that special someone into our lives that can help us, that we can walk with and serve you even greater in our purpose, Lord. We thank you and bless us, everyone, in Jesus' name, amen. All right, my new friends, thank you so much. And my older friend who I've known, thank you so much. And you all have a blessed and wonderful evening, and happy Thanksgiving to you as well.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Take care.
Good night.
Good night and God bless.
Good night.